What happens when the thing you've barely dared to dream for actually comes true? How does it change you when what you've been believing for and almost given up hope on finally becomes reality? The Redefining Possible podcast spotlights guests with stories of insurmountable odds who have witnessed the impossible become possible with God. Welcome to Redefining Possible. I'm your host, Peyton Hoffman, and with me today is Brittany Glisson, Executive Director of St. Gerard's Campus in Florida. Brittany, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh my goodness, I'm so excited for you to be here, and you have an incredible story. But first, before we dive into that, will you tell, for folks who don't know or who aren't in Augustine, Florida, tell us a little bit about St. Gerard's, tell us a little bit about yourself, and just a little bit of the background there.
Of course. So my name is Brittany Glisson, and I have the honor of being the executive director, like you said, at St. Gerard Campus. But a lot of the things that I'm most proud of, I'm a firefighting wife. I have three beautiful boys. I live by the beach in St. Augustine. Such a beautiful place to be. But in St. Augustine is this gem, and it's St. Gerard Campus. And like I said, I have the honor of being over it currently. But we've been servicing Northeastern Florida for 41 years. May was actually 41 years. It's a maternity home, high school, pregnancy resource center. We do such great things just for mothers who are in need. The demographic we serve are ages 14 to 20.
Wow.
But in addition to being able to get their education and live on site if they need that, we have a daycare facility so moms can actually have that supportive service while they are attending class every single day.
Wow.
An amazing place.
It's amazing, and I can't believe it has existed for over 4 decades. I mean, I didn't realize it was that established in St. Augustine. That's incredible. What a legacy to step
It's
into.
awesome. It is. Our founders, the Wolf family, Miss Carol Wolf, actually started in the early 80s. In this mission, we were incorporated in 85 and moved to our current location in 87. But being part of this, this just amazing organization throughout the years, since I was a graduate in class of 2003, I'm an alumni. I've just seen the transformation in so many moms' lives and just the support to the community. It's an honor to be part of it. It's awesome.
Well, and you just touched on something which is where I want to go, which is your story. You mentioned that you're a graduate at St. Gerard Campus, which you are a mother, obviously, but you were in the program. So tell us a little bit about how that happened and what brought you there.
Absolutely. So to tell you my story, I have to start a little bit before I attended St. Gerard Campus. So I was raised in a family where my mom was an extremely strong, independent woman. And I would say we're holiday Christians at best.
Okay.
But faith was not a big part. Go ahead.
No,
I didn't hear what you said.
We know what that is. The holiday Christians. I'm laughing because everyone knows what that is. The Christmas and Easter Christians.
Oh, absolutely. And, I think I attended every single possible denomination growing up. So there was a great exposure to a lot of different churches, but it was never something that was really solidified in the home. It wasn't something that I felt like was a foundation growing up. So when I entered my high school freshman year, I definitely was that quintessential teen girl who just wanted that storybook high school experiences, parties, football games, all the great things. And I met a senior from a different school and began dating. And it was my first real relationship. And unfortunately, it was not a great relationship. So at 15 years old, I actually became pregnant the first time. And due to the abuse and the severe abuse I endured in that relationship, a decision was made to end that pregnancy.
Wow.
So at 15 years old, I actually had an abortion. And something that we don't talk about a lot is there is a demographic or a statistic, it's called the atonement child, where I think it's upwards of 98% of moms, if they're under the age of 21, if they become pregnant and have an abortion, within 2 years, they will become pregnant again.
Wow.
So at 15, yes, it's actually called the atonement. So it's a way, like subconsciously, that you're trying to make up for that decision that you made. And I think age is such a huge factor of that because we're so vulnerable. and we don't know how to heal. We don't know what we're doing. Our bodies are still growing, and you want to have this voice to do the right thing, or, stand up for what you believe in. And sometimes you don't feel like you can do that. So unfortunately, at 15 years old, that experience really catapulted me into a life of just chaos. And 2 years later, I became pregnant with my son, Logan. And when we encountered this situation, I remember going to my mom and saying, "Hey, I'm going to go to St. Gerard Campus." Growing up here, we knew of it. This is still the early 2000s where, you didn't see pregnancies in high schools.
Right.
Girls weren't walking around pregnant. I know the Catholic high school that I attended, you couldn't stay on, you weren't allowed to stay in school if you were pregnant. So there was still very much this kind of shunning element where girls just kind of disappeared, and they would come back and they'd either adopt it, or whatever had happened, parents were helping or they were parenting. And so I had heard of St. Gerard Campus, but I had never seen St. Gerard Campus. So my mom at that point said, "Okay, let's go tour. Let's go see what this is about." And that day just changed my life. It was such an encounter of the possibility that possibly I could do this. So at 17 years old, I enrolled at St. Gerard Campus. And it was the first time I had really been introduced to motherhood. I mean, there were 25 in my class, all ages, so much diversity. And these beautiful moms were educating themselves and doing their best, all while their babies were in tow. It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Wow. So that experience coming in to St. Gerard, was that while you were still pregnant, before you'd had the baby, or was it
Yes.
after? Okay, so you came in, talk about
Yes.
that experience of just the community, because that's really the
Absolutely.
first time you'd been with people who were in the same, other women that were in the same experience at the same time.
Well, absolutely. And you have to think too, being 17 and being pregnant and walking around in everyday life, you get the stares. I'm from a small town. I mean, we're a little beach town, but everybody knows everybody's business. So there's a lot of shunning that happens, a lot of speculation, a lot of talking behind closed doors. And I'm not like everybody else now.
Right.
And you can kind of conceal it. And then when you start to show, it's visible. Your decision, your situation or circumstance is so visible, and everybody feels like they have an opinion, and a lot of people are very open with that opinion. So when I stepped into St. Gerard Campus, at that point I was started school in August. I had actually gave birth to my son in October. He was early.
Wow.
But I was visibly pregnant. Very nervous walking in that day, because you have to think, I did a tour in the summer. Nobody was there. It was like school was closed. So I didn't know what to expect. And I walked in, and there were young moms who were breastfeeding in class, and they were holding their children. And a lot of the girls had been there prior years. So it was perhaps maybe their junior year when they came, and now they're in their senior year. And it was an amazing kind of, just like I said, that introduction to motherhood, but also that camaraderie of motherhood. Like we were a crew. Like, I wasn't going to talk bad about you because I'm the same. Like, it was this unity that brought us together. And all of a sudden, all the distractions of high school were gone, and we were getting our education, but then also we were having this encounter with God, and people were coming and they were telling us for the first time, a lot of us were hearing, like, "You're called to do this."
Wow.
Like, that blew my mind. What do you mean I'm called to do this? This was a mistake. That's what everybody thought. She's in trouble. Like, she did the wrong thing. This isn't great. And here were these women who were just loving on me and going, "God, you're so worthy of this. And you're going to be a great mom," and just empowering you with their words and their actions, and just coming and advocating for you in such a beautiful way. I mean, all of the staff, the teachers, just were so delicate on how they instructed us, and were so helpful, and loving our children when they're in the classroom. My son, like I said, he was born pre-me, 2 months. So my son never went into our daycare. He had oxygen and a monitor, and he was welcomed into the classroom, and it was not a big deal. I mean, everybody just jumped into action to support me, just like all the other mothers. So that the goal was to get us graduated, but also to teach us how to be responsible moms. But even more so than that, like, to get your worth back.
Yeah.
And I always tell our girls, I'm like, "Sis, like, this isn't the end of the story. This is just the beginning, babe. And you have this amazing person that gets to walk through life with you now." Like, how powerful is that? It's awesome.
It's amazing. And you hit on so many things that I just love about it, love in general, but love about this story. And One of them is that you mentioned, this was the first time I really began to encounter God. Can we dive
Yeah.
into that? Like, where was, I mean, you were a holiday Christian, as you called it, before coming to St. Gerard Campus.
Yeah.
How did that shift?
Yes.
Did things shift for you while you were there? And if so, how?
So I would definitely say it was a seed planted. I was definitely coming from some pretty severe trauma. The abuse I endured, the abortion previous, walls were pretty up. So even when I was building relationships or people would come in, I was guarded about certain topics. So obviously being in an organization like St. Gerard Campus where people are choosing life and I would have people talk about abortion and I just immediately was on the defense. There was a hardening of my heart. So I was open to it. I mean, I attended a Catholic high school. So when prayers were said, I would be respectful. But it was almost like I had internally felt like I had done so much wrong. How could I ever have this relationship with God? And like, who are you lying to? Like, this isn't who you really are. Like, who you really are is all your dirt and all your shame and all the stuff that you've done. So it was almost unattainable. But what it was is it was the stability
Yeah.
of somebody just loving me and meeting me every day and coming and praying with me and showing that compassion and taking my shame and really allowing the Lord to meet me there. And they would say these beautiful little things, like I said, like the worth. And it would just open my eyes a little bit, like perhaps. I'm not ready, but perhaps. And I'm not worthy yet, but maybe one day I can get to this place. And it was just such amazing, like I said, those little seeds that were planted over time where I saw women of God and I saw how women of God operated, not the people talking in the streets, the ones that would come and have the hard conversations or pray when you were having a hard time. So it was definitely a seed planted. When I graduated at 18, I would love to tell you that I had this huge encounter right away. And I was, no, girl, I was like, of course, I'm like, go work in a bar and, I'm going to make money and I'm going to nursing school. So like, I'm trying to do this whole thing and figure out my life. And like I said, we're in a beach town. So like primo things to do. I mean, like, it's so much fun, right? For chaos. But, a couple of years later at 20, a friend invited me to church and I kind of just remember being like, if I at least go, she'll leave me alone kind of mentality.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And like for me, even prayer growing up was to get me out of trouble. I went to God in prayer when I had snuck out of the house and I needed to get home before curfew or before somebody woke up if I'm sneaking out of the house or wasn't a curfew. Or help me with this test or the cops, help me not get this ticket. It was very much that transactional relationship with God. And I remember even having a son very early and talking to God about that. Like, if you just save him, like, I'll be good. I won't mess up anymore. It was never this true heart change. It was a bargaining mentality with God. So that kind of, after graduation continued. And then going to church, I remember prepping like this Saturday night, my son was 3. And I remember going and having this kind of revelation, like, I don't need God because I'm not worthy of it, but my son needs God and he needs to be around normal people and normal people go to church. Like that's how just bizarre my mentality was. So going into the church service, number one, I'm watching everything. Like, it's weird to me. Church was weird to me. Like people are raising their hands or there's music or, I'm waiting people to judge me. And it was just insecurity.
Right.
And so I heard this beautiful message. And it was God's love letter to me. And the conversation and this pastor was just talking about like the possibility of new life. And so with that, this conversation, and he just started having this beautiful sermon about a new life. And throughout the whole service, I remember there was a prompting in me to surrender to that. But I didn't know what that meant or what it was like. Does that make sense? There's something tangible here. Like I can feel there's something different in this place, but I was so uncertain of what that was. And at the end of the service, the pastor said, he was talking about getting born again. And he said, I would love for someone to come up here because I know that you're in this place and there's so much shame and it's going to be hard for you to get up out of your seat. And he said, I will walk with you.
Wow.
And he went through the whole auditorium and sat in each row, and each row he got up. And it was like to prompt the person to come. And I remember just thinking, like, somebody needs to move. Somebody needs to move, not realizing it was for me. I know even, hey, this is possibly your time, your opportunity, sis, to get up. I just was there was so much burden and shame on me that I was just watching. And so the pastor went through the whole auditorium and nobody got up. And I remember going home and saying, maybe that was for me, but I couldn't do it. I didn't have it in me, the courage to get up that day. But I will say a week later, I attended church again.
Okay.
And I did get up that day. And
nice.
It was the most beautiful minute of my adult life. And just this dropping of all the expectations I thought I had to get to have a relationship with God.
Wow.
But that was where my true surrender started at 20 years old at Anchor Faith Church in St. Augustine, Florida. It was beautiful.
I love that. I mean, I love the obedience of the pastor. I love that you went back. And honestly, it's really interesting to hear you share about that, because I hear, a mother that is so, even at, 20 years old, that was so selfless that she said, my son needs this. You didn't recognize how you needed it for yourself for obvious reasons, but you had already just that selflessness and that giving of a mother to say, but my son needs this. I need to go for him. He needs this.
Yes.
And
yes.
I just love that the Lord brought both of you there, and those, the seeds that were planted at 17, it wasn't that long ago. I mean, you were 20. This was a hot minute later. This was not that long ago.
No. And I think the thing is that we can never negate the power of prayer. Right. Because I know there were women. I know there were women from St. Gerard Campus. I know there was a friend of mine's mom who at 16 I met, who totally loved me and she loved the Lord and she was praying for me often. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can never negate the seeds that we're planting in other people's lives. Right. And we want it now. Like, I'm still very much like that. Like, I want it now. That minute, I want it. This is my dog. This is my life, y'all. This is my life. But we can't expect for God to move on our timing. Like, I don't know if I would have been ready at 17, 18 years old to completely surrender, to be, in a church and committed to that, committed to allowing the Lord to heal those places. I wasn't ready yet. Yeah. I wasn't ready to actually allow God to check my heart and search my heart and say, I see this stuff. We got to start working on this now. But if I hadn't made that decision to go to that school at 17 years old, I don't know if I would have made that decision at 20 to surrender my life to Christ. And ultimately, I don't know if that would have brought me to where I am in this position now that I'm so honored to be in. It's amazing how God orchestrates everything.
He is in the details so far. And coming to where you are now, as executive director, helping other women and young girls, like, what was it like coming back to St. Gerard Campus years later? Now a wife, a mother, all of the roles.
Yes. Well, so shortly after I got born again and hooked up at church and started to really develop in my relationship with God, something always kind of happens in us. It's kind of this call to give to others, right? Like, I want to show the love and compassion of Christ to others. I want to be the hands and feet. And so I remember when I started kind of, like I said, developing those, St. Gerard Campus was always on my heart. Yeah. I was so thankful for the investment. I knew that. I saw the importance of the investment made in me. So I always stayed in contact with our founder, Miss Carol. I went back often and just would bring my son so she could see him. So that relationship was developing. And so about 21, I started to do some advocacy and mentorship with the girls.
Wow.
Miss Carol, she had a student who was perhaps struggling. She would bring me in and I would hang out and talk. I also talked on at a couple events talking about my experience, because I think that that's the biggest part too, is our testimony is powerful. I think we have to understand it says the blood of the lamb and the word of our testimony. That's what sets people free. But it also set me free
Mm,
because now I'm no longer a victim of this. I'm a victor in this and I get to be part of this. And so I never really left. That's the interesting part. I was blessed to be able to stay home with my boys. I have three beautiful boys, and my husband was he was just very, very good. He was just so peaceful. He's wonderful.
yeah.
He's a good guy. And I met him. He adopted my son. And when we
Wow.
started having our children, I was like, listen, I really want to be home with this. Like, I can't imagine not being around these boys all the time.
Mm.
So I had that season volunteering at St. Gerard Campus, blessed to be at home with my boys. And then my youngest started VPK,
Oh,
which
wow.
for all the moms, oh, girl, VPK is like the best minute of every mom's life because all of a sudden, if you're a stay-at-home mom, you get a couple hours to yourself. So I immediately contacted Miss Carol and said, hey, whatever you need, I'm here. So I came on staff at that time. And I was actually one-on-one with the girls in the classroom, which to be honest was always my favorite role.
Mm,
Like I love the relational part of it.
hmm
So I went in and I was helping the girls and just making sure they, phones were where they need to be. They were attentive in class. How can I help you with your baby? And when I said yes to that role, I'd had a conversation with God just in the sense of like, I'm saying yes to this
Right.
and whatever this means and whatever it looks like. And my husband, Shawn, was like, let's go, like
Ah, I
game
love
on.
that. I love
Um,
that.
yes, he was very supportive. So my boys would come with me, my little ones, if they were out of school, like it just became kind of our family's mission, which was awesome.
Wow.
And such an amazing testimony to these young moms of like, hey, sis, I was there. I've been where you are. And motherhood never ends.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Motherhood it's a season that we're walking through, but it really becomes part of who we are too. And I think that this woman's coming back and she's bringing her kids and she loves us. It was great for both of us to see that. So I actually came into my role as executive director almost 6 years ago. So over the past 20 years, I've been affiliated with it in one sense or another, but came into my current role as executive director almost 6 years ago.
I love that though. I just love the trajectory of that and the journey where, you went there, you were a graduate, then you volunteered, you did some one-on-one work with the women, you came back and did one-on-one work with the women and the Lord was just preparing you for it the whole time. Like I can look at that journey
Absolutely.
and you literally got to
It's,
know every facet of that
you know,
organization.
I couldn't have done it better myself. If I had gone and gotten a master's, which I do not have, in nonprofit development, I would not have been equipped the way that I have been equipped over the last 20 years to run this facility. Somebody told me early on, he goes, the Lord doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called.
Yes, yes.
And so it was this beautiful education throughout all the years and being able to be in this facet of the organization for a season and learn compliance and learn what we're doing in education and then flip over to daycare and help
Mm,
facilitate that with our DCF regulated license. And then here we're going to put you over into the dorms for a little bit. It was this beautiful navigation of just the equipping that God was putting me into to be able to come into this role. And I'm still learning. I
of
mean, our
course.
girls are the best education of what we need to do every single day at this organization
Yeah.
because it changes. It changes every single year.
Mm,
So, and it's changed dramatically over the last 6 years and the needs, the requirements, what our girls are needing more. And so it really is. I think that we have to allow the Lord to do the work. He's got to place you and listen, you got a lot of work to do
yeah.
too, but it's just trusting him that he's got you in the right
Yeah,
place.
that's so true. And I actually love that you touched on the women, the girls that are there, and also just how their needs are changing. So for you, I
Yes,
know something that you're really passionate about is just redefining outreach, in general.
absolutely.
So let's talk about what outreach, maybe your definition of outreach was, before this journey and how has it changed? Let's talk about
Absolutely.
how that whole thing, because there's a lot of people that are like, oh, I do outreach,
Yeah,
I do that. And this is very different. So let's talk about how this is different.
yeah, 100%. So when we're talking about outreach in general, and we're talking about historically within, let's just say the pro-life movement or St. George
Mhm.
campus, right? historically, there was one thing that these girls needed. It was an education, right? So that was the whole formulation, is get them in, get their education. As far as outreach, whatever needed to be done, volunteers were coming, all of these different things, people put in place procedures to make sure that they were getting their education.
Okay.
Because when I was in high school, it was unheard of that you were not going to finish your education.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward, the pendulum really has swung.
Yes.
And what we're seeing is really a lack of desire in most cases in every genre of this age demographic. High school, private school, there's a lack of desire for education, right? But what we've noticed in the last 5 years with our girls, education is the least of the worries.
Wow.
The majority of our
Wow.
girls are coming in with so much significant trauma. And this is what I mean. Like, when we have to redefine, they can't fit in our box. And it doesn't mean that we, as organizations, any sort of outreach, any sort of organization as a whole, it doesn't mean we lax our standards, but we do have to have the realization that some of these girls that we are personally coming in contact with have significant trauma.
Right.
They're coming with battles that we can't even comprehend. Very similar to mine, the fact, the abuse, the abortion, all of that. And then to have this understanding that she's just kind of coming to make straight A's is just unheard of.
Right.
One of the things we've developed is it's a loving them well mentality. It's meeting them where they're at. What we want to do a lot of the time is, in whatever situation, is I'm going to come and correct you, and I expect for you to do right. And so what we have done with all of our training, with staff, volunteers, anybody coming in, is no, what we're going to do is we're going to build connection. And then that is going to bring trust. And then ultimately, through trust, correction can come in. But we have to start with connection first.
I love that.
The majority of our girls are coming now from foster care. We've seen sex trafficking, extreme neglect, cases in their own homes. And so it's really reworking our narrative and taking the time to build that necessary connection so that it's stability, right? They know every day they're going to get us, the same person, every single day. And guess what? You can try to push me away and you can try to do all these things, but I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Now I'm going to tell you about your butt occasionally. We call them spiritual spankings. Because I'm going to hold the standard, but it doesn't mean I love you less.
Yes.
And so in this culture where a lot of our girls, whether in education programs, have felt like they don't fit in, right? They might have a behavioral modification plan, or they're the girls like me that were fighting in high school. They come in and they're ready. Like, their guards are up. We call it flipping their lid. Like, they're ready all the time. So we have to diminish it. We got to make it a peaceful place. We have to be the ones that are sometimes calling, hey, are you good? Like, we're reaching out. We're going to be that family that you need. And so as an organization, when we're reworking the narratives, I think loving them well has to be on the forefront of how we develop programming differently now. It's just, it is insane what we're seeing. And it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's absolutely heartbreaking. And I love just the realization of, hey, the classic model of outreach doesn't work anymore. And the needs are so much greater and so much deeper. And that's really just education of society as a whole, understanding, hey,
100%.
There's, like you said, traumatic events, situations, ongoing abuse, neglect, trafficking, just all of those, all of the things that have happened on top of, teen pregnancy, abortion, whatever else. I think just expanding our mental concepts and understanding of what that could look like. And just, hey, this is not as easy as just plugging a girl in a classroom, teaching her how to take care of her baby. This is much deeper. And like you said, you have to build safety for them before, and trust. I mean, trust goes with safety. They have to feel safe because they've been in situations where they've been unsafe. So that's like number one. You have to build that safety. And then from there, you can start to do the work that you really want to do. But it's life-changing. I mean, it's changing lives.
And the big part of it too, it is, well, and it's empowerment of choice. I think the biggest thing is reclaiming these words. Like, you have a choice to be here. So our girls coming out of foster care, or anything with DCF, which is Department of Children and Families, where we are.
Mm-hmm.
So if the state has gotten involved at all with the majority of with these girls, what they become accustomed to is the quick moving. They're not asked.
Mm.
There's you're getting placed here, and so we really rework the dynamics of when a girl comes, whether a caseworker is calling me or a parent can want her to come all day long, but if she doesn't want to be there, she's not going to be successful.
Yep, agreed.
And so what we really changed is the first thing that we do is we bring the mom in. I don't care if she's 13 or 20, she's going to have the tour.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk to her.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be that empowerment of choice, because ultimately that's the buy-in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes her successful, because at the end of the day, in 6 months, when she's having a rough day, we go, wait, no. Why did you choose to be here? Because it's not a jail. You're not forced here.
Mm-mm.
It's not a lockdown facility. And it really is that thing that they can go back and it's like, oh, okay, I remember. Yeah, I'm here for my baby, or I'm here for my education, or I want to better myself. But I think that we really do have to rework the narrative too within the pro-life movement that I'm undeniably part of. Is we are here to save babies, absolutely, but we have to save moms.
Yes,
we have to love them both.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're forgetting that attached to this beautiful baby is this beautiful mom and dad and families that all need to heal.
Yeah.
Like we're forgetting that it really is all of them together that so desperately need us.
Yeah, it's healing the family, not just,
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that goes so much deeper. And that's generational. I mean, that is healing generations.
Oh, absolutely. So one of the most profound things that I really got back into in the last couple of years, well, my mom, so I come from social working parents. So anything psychology wise, we're always talking about. But have you ever heard of epigenetics? This is one of these great words. Like this is that word, like when you're out of party and you want to sound smart, you say epigenetics. So because you just kind of touched on it, generational curses, generational things that these girls are combating.
Mm-hmm.
So we call it Christianese. That's what we say in my family, it's Christianese. Like people say these things and they're like, what does that even mean? Generational curses. But at Texas Christian University, they actually started this study. And what they're seeing is there is truth to the fact generationally, and now they have science to back up that we're affected by what our grandparents encountered and endured.
Oh, yeah.
So these great scientists, they, like I said, Texas Christian University, they exposed these male rats to this beautiful smell. I think it was cherry blossoms, and they would invoke pain. So it started a trauma response. It started a fear response every time they smelt that smell. So they bred these male rats 3 generations down. These generations never had contact with the original male rats. And so what they started to do is as they aged a little bit, they would start to expose them to cherry blossom smells. And these pups that had never encountered their great-great-great-grandfather in any capacity had an innate fear. Like they had a fear response to the smell that they had never, ever been exposed to anything that would invoke that fear. So what we're seeing is there is things in us that our generations have not dealt with. And they've had trauma and they've had that, and it on a DNA level gets in us. And without God, like how do we heal these parts without having encounters with people who say, I see you, I love you, you're safe? Like how do we ever get to a place where we can let go of those things? Do you know what I'm saying? It's wild.
No, it's massive. And I've done a lot of work around that myself, and just my friend group here in LA, and just other even Christian leaders that I know. Some people call them generational trends, some people call them generational curses, but it's things, decisions that were made that honestly you may not even know about, but it is in your DNA. Like it is living there. And that is I'm a big proponent of EMDR and inner healing, inner prayer. I mean, just all of it.
Yes.
And all of it is so powerful, but you're right. There's things that you can trace back multiple generations and say,
100%.
Oh, wait a minute, this is still
and
affecting
it's hard.
things. Yeah.
And they're more susceptible. I think that's the thing too, is at a young age, it's very difficult. The girls that I'm serving at St. Gerard Campus, when I was there, myself included,
Mm-hmm.
at 15, 16, 17 years old, you don't give a rip. Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
care what my
Mm-hmm.
family was dealing with or
Right.
what I'm more
Right.
susceptible to, whether it's chemical, emotional, relational.
Right.
We don't get that. So I think that that's that hard thing that we're combating is bringing truth to a generation that our girls specifically, they're kind of, I don't want to say forced, but their eyes are open to like, I have to change. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be this way. I don't want to endure the battles my mom did, or the economic struggles my family did,
Mm.
or the addiction that I'm seeing run through my
Mm.
family. Like, so I think that where the majority of youth really don't care, like they have that mentality where they're kind of untouchable. Our girls have now experienced something that is at a young age opening their eyes to the possibility of like, okay, it's not just me I have to worry about
Yeah.
anymore. And it's profound to see, and it's powerful. But those are a couple of the things as far as developing. When we were talking about outreach, we have to do things differently. When
Mm-hmm.
I was there, mental health wasn't a factor.
Right. Right.
We didn't have counselors there to talk. Now we had beautiful women of
Mm-hmm.
God and great teachers and all of these people who were loving on us. Where what we brought in the last couple of years is a mental health professional.
Mm-hmm.
We do have somebody on staff that is there. We do our TBRI training so that we are informed on how to help a mom if she's slipping her lid a little bit,
Yeah.
or how do we make this a conducive environment so that she feels safe, whether that is obviously with our tone and how we talk and
Mm-hmm.
direct. We do a lot of family meetings. We do a lot of, hey, let's have a one-on-one conversation. We calm the situation down. But as simple as like sensory stuff,
Mm.
like we are being educated as a nation on the need for these different things. Why wouldn't we incorporate that in a pro-life, faith-based organization as well? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it matters. I think we just are really taking the trends that we're seeing a lot of positive movement in and implementing them in our program as well. And we're seeing a lot of success with that. I mean, you
Yeah.
come in our classroom, our girls will have headphones where in 2003, they would, oh no, none of that was occurring. But it's just play some calm music. If you're getting your work done, I'm fine with that. Or go have a walk. Or you want to put a blanket around your cold. Like, we're good with that. But it's really allowing them to feel safe and heard and like, this is easier for me if I have this. Okay, I hear you, Seth. I got you, babe. Now let's be respectful, make sure that we're doing what we got to do, but that's fine.
It's what I love is, and what I hear you saying without saying it, is that you're actually raising a generation of overcomers in these women. And I think
Yes. Yeah.
that is what is so beautiful. One of the things that's so beautiful about the work that you all are doing. And what I want to do is switch a little bit to your story, because I'm hearing so much about how the Lord has used you through this and your journey. How has that really redefined what's possible for your life? I mean, personally.
So, I mean, the interesting thing is as soon as I made Christ the center of my life, everything was possible, right? I think that it took me a really long time to believe that.
Mm, mm,
So my walk and getting involved in a church, I actually met my husband at church.
hmm
And pretty soon after attending church, and here was this really stable person, and he was from a loving family and so far beyond what I ever thought I deserved or wanted to be part of.
Wow.
But what it is I entered a marriage and I had this beautiful man who really wanted to be my counterpart, but I still was dealing with a lot.
Mm,
So it's
mhm,
almost like pretty on the outside, and you learn how to say the right things. And I'm in the South, so we say a lot of yes ma'am and no
mhm,
ma'ams. And you start to just, instead of doing the hard work that we're talking about that needs to be done, what I started to do was just kind of fit in. Does that
mm.
make
It
sense? I just
does.
started to fit. And then what it was is over time, I started to get that prompting, like, hey, we're going to need to deal with this eventually. And so I think probably 4 years into my walk, and building my relationship with God and attending church, a woman got up and she talked about her testimony of abortion.
Mm,
And I'm like, oh, absolutely not, God. Like,
mm,
whatever this is you're doing, I don't want to be part of it,
mm.
because I didn't tell anybody those things. Like, my husband knew I had had an abortion, but the majority of the people at church did not know. And
Wow,
then, in
wow.
fact, I married the pastor's son. So I'm married to this pastor's son. My pastor, I married his son. So I
Wow.
felt this almost, it was kind of this pressure to just kind of be what I thought was needed to be. So just
Mhm.
being quiet
Mhm.
was actually a really great change because I was so chaotic. To have peace and calm,
Mm.
but have this internal struggle was really, really difficult. But I
Mm.
made the decision. The individual who I loved very much, she was doing a post-abortive recovery class, and I knew I had to be part of it.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so when I encountered God, what it did is it opened up these little opportunities for me to surrender this part. And
Yeah.
God was so precious with me because it wasn't a dump like all at one time. I was
Right.
like, okay, we're going to deal with this now. And we're going to deal with this now. And so one of the things in that process is the ownership of my story, because for so long it was easy for me with my abortion, or any of my traumas to blame other people, right?
Wow.
And
Yeah.
listen, and hear me when I say, like, 100% I was a victim in
Yes.
abuse, and absolutely I felt very victimized and the experience I had as a whole, right? But for the first time I had ownership,
Mm. Mm.
and I had to heal, and I had to allow God to heal that part. And that really was a jumping off to, okay, I can desire God or I can care what people think.
Yes. Yeah.
And that was a hard minute, and that's where we kind of get, and it's easy as women. I mean, and men, I would rather be honest than ever go back to the life I had.
Yeah.
But I have experienced in church settings where the pressure I felt made it impossible for me to get out of my seat. That was the
Wow.
beginning of my story.
Wow.
And that was something I kind of continued, like, well, I'll deal with this later or whatever it was. And so I had to do a lot of hard work and
Mhm.
just being real with myself and allow God to show me who I was going to be, because I'm not supposed to be anybody else.
Yes.
But one of the great things that the revelation I had is that in walking into this role at St. Gerard Campus and walking into this role, uh, being discipled and allowing God to really, to step into the purpose He had for my life, was a part of this, Brittany, is yes, St. Gerard Campus, 100%. And some of your story is this abortion recovery that I get to facilitate at my church now.
Wow.
I'm a
Wow.
big proponent of post-abortive healing, but I also am a mom,
Mhm.
and I'm a wife, and I'm a daughter, and like all these different things. And it's okay to be all of those things beautifully.
Mhm.
I think that we want our whole identity to be one thing. But what I was saying is, I can really heal, like we're talking about the generations and my family,
Mhm.
how I love my son and how I love my husband, and I'm loved by my husband. And the ultimate calling that I have is really to be in whatever situation or season somebody's in. When I was in that season, whether it was abuse, abortion, teen pregnancy, a new wife, a new mom, I want to be to that person what I needed in that minute.
Mm.
And I think that's where my walk, the Lord has really shown me, girl, we're going to go a lot of different places.
Yeah.
It's not just here. It's whatever I need you to step into. It's the yes.
Yeah.
I always tell, what's your best yes? Whether that's with a friend, or like I'm saying, like if my oldest son is 24, almost 24, if he needs me, it's a yes. Like, what do you need, babe?
Yeah.
In my marriage, it's a yes. But I think that is the biggest thing, is we have, when we've gone through any situation, which undoubtedly all of us have,
Mhm.
the Lord allows to come in and take that situation, that experience, good, bad, ugly, and pour it into somebody else and allow them to be free.
Mhm.
And so I think that is a beautiful thing that I've seen God do. And really, I'm most excited about, because I don't know. I don't know every single year what's going to come, what's going to be added. I know that St. George Campus is my purpose and my calling, and God has brought me back there. But I think it really is, He's an undeniable God.
Yeah.
When you walk through situations, you cannot not be in awe of what He
Yeah.
does. And that's how I feel about my life. And it's really just, without Him, none of this would have been
Yeah.
possible.
It's so amazing, and I mean, I just love sharing pieces of your story, and, really, even in this moment, just knowing, like, as the Lord broke off layers of shame and layers of regret and guilt and pain and anger, just all of these things that even in hearing you share it, I see the Lord just broke all these things off of you and healed you so you could become a healer of others. And I think that is so, He does that for all of us, but I think it's so exceptional that he used the thing that once broke you to be the area where you get to
Yeah.
heal other people. And that's what he does.
And
That's the
it's a
testimony.
lesson.
Yeah, that's the redemption. That's the redemption.
Yes. And that's the thing too, is like, but I'm very honest, like with our girls at the school too, like we never arrive.
Right.
Like I still struggle. Like my mind, like give me some Joyce Meyer, like battlefield of the mind kind of
It's
situations. Like
real. It's
those,
real. Yes. For
it
everyone. For
is,
everyone.
it's
Yeah.
awful. Like those are the minutes when I'm working and everything is great. I love it, right? When I'm busy, but in the quiet time, when I think about how old my child would
Right.
be,
Right.
or that situation I walked through when I didn't do it right, or the life that I had, or failures now, when you know what I'm saying,
Right.
we're never going to get to this place where everything's perfect.
No.
But I think that the biggest battle is the mind.
Mhm.
And if you can just allow the Lord in there, it's so much
It
easier.
is.
And that's what I'm still learning
Yeah.
every single day. You have good days and where you feel like, man, I'm on it. And then you have other days where you're like, hey, it's been really, really rough. And
Yes.
sometimes, and especially some years,
Yes.
some months where you're like, I can't get a break. Like, what is going on? But it's just getting out of ourselves sometimes and almost just going and living on other people. And then it just gets you so excited.
Yeah.
And you realize there is hope and there is something past this and we can get through it. And it's because we're supposed to do it together. We're never supposed to do this
No.
alone.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
It's
it's powerful.
so special. Okay, Brittany, I just adore your story. Thank you so much for sharing so much of it. Tell me, for folks who want to connect with you, that want to connect with St. Gerard Campus, how can they reach you? How can they reach St. Gerard Campus? What's the best way for viewers to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. In general, information is always found at our website. So it's stgerardcampus.org. So please go check that out. You can, if you're local, and you want to get involved as far as volunteering or just coming and donating items, there are always opportunities on
Yes.
there. We always keep people updated with like what our moms are doing, graduations, big things. It's always fun. But also social media is an amazing way to kind of see what's going on, a lot of births. So it's St. Gerard STA is our IG page, and we do have Facebook as well. But just check us out. Just look us up at stgerardcampus.com. It has all the links there. But that's really where the fun is, where you can really kind of see the life of our moms and what we need and what you can be in agreement with us for. But all the celebrations too. Our favorite is when we get to post the new babies being born. Since May, we've had 3 babies born.
Wow.
I mean, we're busy.
Yeah.
And they're beautiful. Who doesn't love a brand new baby? It's just like the best part of my day is when these babies come into my office. And so definitely check us out there and stay connected. And we would love for you to become part of our story.
Oh, I love it. Brittany, thank you so much for joining us today
Thank
on
you.
Redefining Possible. Your story is truly redefining what's possible, for yourself and now for other women. So it's just such an amazing thing. And I just am so grateful that you chose to share some of that today with us. So can't wait to have you back
Well,
on,
thanks
hear
for having
more.
me.
Absolutely. Can't wait to hear more about what is going on with St. Gerard Campus, with you, with the women. I know there's going to be so much more to come. So I'm very, very, very excited for you. So thank you all so much for joining us today on Redefining Possible. I'm your host, Peyton Hoffman, and we will see you next time.
What happens when the thing you've barely dared to dream for actually comes true? How does it change you when what you've been believing for and almost given up hope on finally becomes reality? The Redefining Possible podcast spotlights guests with stories of insurmountable odds who have witnessed the impossible become possible with God.